I'm so sad. It's dead. I just got the news from the news. Democracy is not around anymore. It's dead. I'm so sad. I heard that so many times in the news in the past weeks. Democracy is under threat. Democracy is dead. I'm so sad. Let's take a moment of silence. Let's remember democracy. You should rest in peace. That's not true. Democracy is not dead, although it goes through some challenges, is well and alive, and it's worth celebrating. Saying democracy is dead is like invoking something, like making a wish for something you don't want to become true. Democracy is well, and it's so important. It's such a great achievement of humanity after centuries of failed tests and tries with other systems that the United Nations declare an International Democracy Day in September on, I'm not telling you, you have to stick around until the end of the video to hear on which day we celebrate Democracy Day. The UN Sustainable Development Goals promote democracy in Goal 16, where it says to promote peace, justice and strong institutions. Democracy is so important that we have an International Day of Democracy, and I thought we discovered that together today. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Peter, and today, as always, we want to learn something new, get motivated and celebrate good news and positive outcomes. If you have something good and positive to share, please do that in a comment below. Democracies come in all forms, sizes and shapes, most commonly in the representative democracy, which means that people are represented and ruled by their representatives in a government body. So there are elected officials who take on this job. The word comes from the Greek word demokratia, rule of the people, which leads me to the first problem and challenge for and to democracy: career politicians and election campaigns and elections as a business. Career politicians who use the representative democracy to advance their own interest and make out of that a good career. In the last couple of years, the world saw growing disenfranchisement and disconnect between highly educated, wealthy politicians and the population they represent. Trust is lost, and people make therefore bad decisions when they choose their next politician. But in a highly complicated society, there is no way around experts and well-educated politicians, which leads us into a difficult circle, some kind of paradox. How do we satisfy both? How do we achieve that the politicians who are well educated and experts in their field of expertise still remain connected with their local governments and the people they represent? That leads me to number 2, education and information, another challenge for democracy. Democracy only works when the people rule it and they are involved in it. Actively involved, well-informed voters. This is in some discussions criticized today when it's being said that democracy promotes elitism and ruling of the experts, which in my view is not wrong. Is it wrong to expect and help people to get more educated and better informed, especially in a more complicated, digitalized, highly complex world? What other choices do we have? What's the goal for humanity? Not to make everyone better, more educated, or let society just watch forever screens and live a bit like the Romans did with bread and games? Whoever says democracy is over has a short memory, not remembering how bad the world was or is without it. I did not grow up in democracy. I grew up in the worst dictatorships in Eastern Europe under Nicolae Ceausescu in Romania. I was a child and my memories are more like childish memories, nice ones. Hanging out with my grandfather in a long line to pick up our daily ration of bread. That was fun to be with my grandfather and playing around that line there with other kids. Or picking up milk. He used to have a ticket with the monthly day, and each day I could cross off after we picked up our milk. Everything was rationed, and everyone was surveillanced and spied upon and could be a snitch. I remember now and then my parents talking and then closing the discussion by saying, we shouldn't say that, no one should hear us. And I remember one of the nights of the revolution, my father went out and my mother tried to tell him to stay home, but he said he needs to be outside, he needs to be there when it changes. Childish memories, yet I know today more about what happened and how it was actually, how people suffered, how they were arrested and tortured and imprisoned, what meant not to have freedom of speech and expression of association, at all rights democracy grants its citizens. Doom and gloom media talks about the death of democracy, or at least a big threat to it. I suppose democracy is always under threat, because there are always people who pursue power and influence. The UN sees, especially after and during the coronavirus pandemic, a predicament that is worth considering, and ask what the impact of COVID-19 on democracies was. Developing media literacy, digital safety, fighting misinformation and disinformation, and hate speech are all challenges posed through this crisis. Empowering women against gender-based violence, which has surged during COVID-19 lockdowns, quarantines, and the social economic pressures that arise to uphold the rule of law in a time when the courts can't meet, and to facilitate free, good elections was not easy during the time of the pandemic. Which leads me to the third threat to democracy, which is the technological information revolution. Yuval Noah Harari talks about this in one of his books, 21 Questions for the 21st Century, where he describes that the challenge for democracy is not the challenge as we thought of different kinds of ideologies between, for example, democracy and communism. The difference there is the difference of data processing systems, which democracy democratized and communism centralized. In the past, that was okay because the technology to gather information was not as good. So a democratic system for a democratic economy helped process data much faster than gathering slowly everything in a centralized spot and then giving an answer back in a timely manner. That's why the Soviet Union performed much worse than the United States. But that's about to change, says Yuval Noah Harari, in the 21st century, and we saw that in some ways during the coronavirus pandemic, where centralized government bodies could act faster and more accurate than democratized ones. What's the conclusion on this day? My question is to you, as it is for me too: how can I make democracy better? How can you make democracy better? Ask yourself, what can you do other than read nonsense news, go to protest in a time when it's not really helpful? Are you voting? Are you writing to your local representative? Do you know which politicians is ruling on your behalf? What kind of policies do they promote? That's the place where you need to start, with you, with what you do to make your democracy better. Rather than bickering around, complaining on social media or in comments on videos, you should be acting. You should read policies, you should write to your political representative, and you should celebrate a Democracy Day. Today, on the 15th of September, is Democracy Day. the International Day of Democracy of the United Nations invites us to rethink what the achievements of democracy and the freedoms of democracies are, and what the challenges might be, at least for the next 12 months until we celebrate another International Democracy Day. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful and interesting. If so, please subscribe and support me through your subscription. Leave a comment below and let me know what do you do to make democracy better. See you next time. Bye.